All sports, all the time.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Patrick freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports, because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to the Spoken.
This is the Spoken Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Twidwell, here inside the Starcade Media Studios with my guys, Trevor Twidwell
What's good?
And Clay Wendler. Episode 211, 211 in full swing, full progress, full motion. We're so happy to be here with you and for you to be here with us, whether you are live streaming, whether you are podcasting, or whether you are YouTubing. We want to thank you so much for being with us in this time as we have a plethora, as we like to say in the Chiefs Migos, the three amigos, the plethora of Chiefs news, man. We have so much to discuss. I know this is the offseason, but, man, we are gearing up. We are getting saddled up for a big-time draft. I think this is going to be bigger than a lot of people realize. That's what she said. And we are going to have a lot to discuss, man, about what our theories are and what the Chiefs are going to do and how they build this roster for the next 3 to 5 years. I think it all starts in this previous draft and this draft that's coming up. I'm really excited to talk about that, but we're still a couple of weeks away. There are some things that we need to discuss as far as how the team's going to continue to build their team through roster acquisitions and free agency, potentially trades, and with guys that are currently in-house and whether they're going to get those extensions or not. We're going to get to free agency additions, like I said. We're going to talk about some NFL news and notes. We're going to be handing out some else as we always do. But first and foremost, I just want to say that I am so excited and very, 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 needless to say, giddy that my guy Clay Wendler is with us today. The owner, the founder, the content creator, the madness, the mind behind Red Tribe Cinema. Let's give it up for our guy Clay Wendler today, man. He's with us today. How you doing, Clay, brother? Doing good?
No, I'm great. We are. I was driving over here today, and we live in we're living in the golden age of Chiefs football, as we like to say. I was driving over. I had the sunroof open on my bitchin' Murano, and I'm wearing this Super Bowl champions hat, and the sun was shining through the sunroof on this hat, and the silver highlights on this hat were glinting in the sun.
Glinting, I love it.
That's called pride. That's that pride glimmer. That's what that is.
I was just looking at that, and I was like, Bengals fans don't get to enjoy that. Bills fans don't get to enjoy that. Broncos fans, do they even have the sun in Colorado? I don't know. They haven't felt that in probably since 1998. Or no, I'm sorry.
It's ancient history. It's been 8 years. It's been 8 years. They haven't made the playoffs since.
I was just driving over here and I saw that and I was like, damn. Mm-hmm. It's good.
It's a good feeling. It's such a unique feeling that we now get to bask in what the Chiefs have done, but also know there's so much more that's coming. Right. That's why this is the golden age. We're not living in, man, that was a fun ride. It's now, how do they keep doing this? And that's what I'm really excited about, man, is that we're going to talk about that. And actually, one of the key figures in run to this point, and I believe in the next few years, is going to be Chris Jones. And that's something I wanted to talk about. We weren't here last week, and I apologize so much that we didn't get with you guys. We definitely missed you, and I'm sure you missed us just as much. But we're here now, and I want to talk about something that I was very hell-bent on talking about last week, because I think right now the biggest story that we're not talking about enough is what's going to happen with Chris Jones. Chris Jones, to me, is one of the key central figures of what the Chiefs have done and what I think they're going to continue to do for the next 2 to 3, 4 years. And I wanted to talk about, because, Clay knows this, Trevor, you know this especially. I'm big on looking at the historics of a player and what they've done, where they rank. And we know that, the Chiefs haven't been a team that has gotten the quarterback position right a lot of times. We know before Patrick Mahomes, they didn't have a guy that won a single game they drafted since 1984, Todd Blackledge. So there was a lot of problems there. Where they've gotten it right is a couple other positions. Running back, and we know defensive ends, defensive tackles, edge rushers, places like that. The Chiefs have done very well at getting those guys. Yep. So Chris Jones being able to put himself in the historics of other players that I'm about to name is something that we have to take very seriously, because Patrick Mahomes resetting the quarterback records is not a shock to any of us. Because, like I said, I posted a tweet and I posted on our Facebook group this last week that Patrick Mahomes is about to enter his 6th season as the Chiefs starting quarterback. He'll be the first quarterback to do that for the Chiefs since Lynn Dawson. They're having 6 straight seasons as a starting quarterback. So that is saying something, but we know the records are all going to be in his favor very soon. With Chris Jones, this is absurd. I want to look at where he currently ranks in Chiefs all-time defensive stats. He's currently 8th in sacks. He trails Jerry Mays for 7th all-time by just a half a sack. Jones averages right around 9.5 sacks per season in his career. If he gets to 9.5 sacks in 2023, he will pass Art Still for 5th all-time, and he'll just be 29 years old. He's 4th in tackles for loss. That's humongous to think about all the names the Chiefs have had throughout the years, and he's 4th already in tackles for loss. He's also 2nd in quarterback hits. Now, we know that some of these rankings don't include Derek Thomas because quarterback hits didn't become an official stat until 2001, and obviously Derek's career was already over. So at the worst, Chris Jones would be 3rd all-time in that category. The fact remains that Chris Jones has quickly put himself in the category of one of the best pass rushers and defensive players as a whole in Chiefs history. We know a lot about Patrick Mahomes, and like I said, about him doing what he's done. And the fact that Chris Jones now he'll be 29 in June, is already putting himself next to the likes of Derek Thomas, Tamba Hali, Justin Houston, Art Still, Neil Smith, is a very noteworthy thing that I wanted to bring up today as to why I think he needs to be a guy the Chiefs are going to extend. So from 2016 to 2018, we look at the versatility that Chris Jones has had in 2 different defensive schemes. Bob Sutton's defense was completely different from what Steve Spagnuolo has been doing for the last 4 years. But the one consistent piece in all these defensive schemes has been Chris Jones. So in his 3 seasons with Bob Sutton as his defensive coordinator, he averaged 8 sacks, had 33 combined tackles, 10 tackles for loss, and 17 quarterback hits. Those are his averages. From 2019 to today, he averages 10 sacks, 36 combined tackles, 17 tackles for hits, and 24 quarterback hits. 2018 was the first season that the NFL kept advanced numbers, which was Jones' last season in Sutton's scheme. And in that season, he had 49 pressures, 19 hurries, and 13 quarterback knockdowns. Since 2019, his averages have dipped a little bit in pressures, but his hurries have gone up, and his quarterback knockdowns are the exact same. Chris Jones' 2 best seasons of his career came in 2018 and in 2022. Both seasons he finished with 15.5 sacks exactly. Now, some will say the same game helped him reach that number this season, but he had the same amount of games without a sack as he did in 2018 with 5 that he did this year, and he also had multiple sacks 4 times, the same number that he had, or actually 1 more than he had in 2018 when he only had 3. Chris Jones also has the most seasons in Chiefs history with 15-plus sacks with 2. Everyone else has 1 season or less. That includes Derek Thomas, which I thought was insane to think about. Now, Derek Thomas has more 20-sack seasons, but let's be honest. Being an edge rusher, you're going to get more sacks than an interior defensive lineman. Especially and if you look at the position, it is much more difficult to do, and it's so infallible to think that he's put up these types of numbers. There have been 0 signs of him slowing down. In fact, I think he just had his best overall season, and it only looks like he's going to get better, especially if Brett Veach goes and adds more young talent around him via the draft. The Chiefs are about to pay Chris Jones a lot of money because he's one player that's so young enough for the Chiefs to justify investing a long-term contract into. But as I've stated in how the Chiefs need to add more difference makers, creating depth at wide receiver to extend the primes and the careers as a whole of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, they need to build more depth at defensive line and some of that. Do the same for Chris Jones. As awesome as the pass rush was last season, it was mostly Chris Jones dominating on a weekly basis, George Karlaftis catching fire in the second half of the season, and a bunch of role players. If we're being real here, it was Chris Jones and some guy. It felt like, I know Clay doesn't want to hear this, but it felt like 2007 LeBron James on the defensive side, where he was carrying a bunch of guys. The Chiefs have to get more out of George and at least one more piece of the puzzle this season if they want to have another first-team All-Pro season out of Chris Jones in 2023. But there's still a chance the Chiefs could trade Chris Jones. That is still a possibility. I don't think it's a likely one. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that it's still something that needs to be talked about. And so last week I actually posted on our Twitter account and our Facebook page, if the Chiefs fans out there would rather sign Chris Jones to a 4-year, $100 million deal that has $70 million guaranteed, or trade him for a top 15 pick. 91% of our damn near 600 votes voted to extend Chris Jones. That's obviously a large majority of the fans in favor of locking up Chris Jones long term. That's still 9% of the fans that would still rather trade him. And I'll be honest, I don't believe that number would be half as high had the Chiefs not traded away Tyreek Hill just 1 year ago. The boldness of Brett Veach has slowly gotten at least a small portion of the fan base to buy into the idea of moving off great players in order to acquire valuable draft commodities. And honestly, I'm with them because it did work when it came to the Tyreek Hill trade, and it could work if the Chiefs ultimately decided to trade Chris Jones. Why I'm still, though, on the side of extending Chris Jones and paying him the money that they need to pay him is the fact that he is an elite player in a position the Chiefs can't assume they will win without, and honestly haven't been great at drafting in the Brett Veach era. If you guys really look at it, Brett Veach has crushed every draft since 2020. He's had an incredible reputation over these last 3 years, despite what he did in 2018, which I still can't understand that draft class at all. But we all know his first impressions do matter, and that's why I'm still kind of hesitant about the whole scrapping Chris Jones and trying to bring somebody else in, because if you look at it, since 2018, Brett Veach has drafted 7 defensive linemen. Breeland Speaks, Derek Nottie, Khalil McKenzie, Colin Saunders, Mike Dana, Joshua Caindale, and now George Karlaftis. Of that list, there are 3 players that never amounted to anything, 2 very solid rotational pieces, and 1 with a very solid rookie season that has star potential. I think George Karlaftis could turn into a premier edge rusher in this league, but we don't know yet. So if we're going to look at this list and give Karlaftis the benefit of the doubt, as we did, Veach is 1 for 7 and landing a star or just an above-average pass rusher through the draft in his time as the Chiefs GM. Folks will say, well, he hasn't drafted wide receiver very well either, and they still traded Tyreek Hill. That's true. But see, here's the difference. The Chiefs also have the world's best quarterback and the world's best tight end, an elite offensive line, and an offensive-minded head coach who also happens to be the best at what he does. The Chiefs' defense doesn't have that many get-out-of-jail-free cards, if you will. Chris Jones is that get-out-of-jail-free card for the Chiefs' defense. This is why the Chiefs can't trade Chris Jones. At least not for this offseason. I love the idea of landing a top 15 pick, but at the price of losing the best interior pass rusher in the league, I'm not willing to do that and while the Chiefs are in the brink of racking up more Super Bowl trophies over the next 5. So that's where I want to leave it to you guys. Trev, I'm going to start with you. Yeah. When it comes to this potential, because I still do think there's this small area of what could be where Chris Jones could legitimately get traded, and I do think the Chiefs could get value draft picks out of it, and I think if they didn't have 10 picks already, that would be something they would take seriously. But I don't think that's going to be a reality. I don't think the Chiefs are going to move off of him at the peak of his powers, even though we know the Chiefs don't like to extend guys that go into their 30s. He is that unicorn player. He is the best at what he does. I think the Chiefs are going to look at this the same way they did with Tyreek Hill and say, we can still win without you. I think they're like, no, we need to win with Chris Jones. He gives us a far greater chance. What are your thoughts?
We can still win without Tyreek because we have Patrick Mahomes. That's the point there. Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. And for me, what I revere the most about Chris Jones is like that he wants to be here. He's a diehard Chiefs fan at heart. He loves this city. He's made it very clear on Twitter, I'm a Chief for life, blah, blah, blah. Seeing that out of star players, unicorn-type players like him that know they can demand money and he can make a fuss about us if he wants a contract extension. He can talk shit like a lot of guys do on Twitter. He could be very petty if he wanted to be because he's that dude. But he's not. He's like the most likable guy. But he's also a killer on the field and a guy that has won us games single-handedly. And a guy that any team would kill to have. He's the Aaron Donald-esque type player, and especially with Aaron Donald being on his way out of the league, he's going to be that guy, to carry that mantle as that dog at that position, maybe being the best at that position. So, yeah, these are the kind of guys you don't let walk. And you went down the whole list, and you talked about historics and the resume that is Chris Jones and what he's done in his career and who he is and what he's capable of. Obviously, those are all valid reasons to why you want to keep that guy in this team. But for me, as just pure want this team to win, regardless of what name is on the jersey, this is one of those guys. I'm like, okay, this is a name on the jersey that I do actually really, really am mindful of and want to keep on this roster, and is a glue guy to the success and is a key contributor to the success of this team in this run and the run that we want to continue for the next handful of seasons. That's big for me. So yeah. I think, obviously, not just what he does statistically, but who he is as that rah-rah guy. We saw during the Super Bowl run, the Cincy game and the Super Bowl, just this past Super Bowl, what he does on the sidelines, telling everybody to sit down. He's the vocal leader on the defense, especially with the vacancy that Tyrann Mathieu left behind, not that voice. He stood up and he's been that guy since that departure. So those it's the intangible things for me, man, because we already know what he's capable of on the field and what he does and how much he demands, with offensive lines and what they have to double team him and creating opportunities for other guys and the George Kaloftises and the Frank Clarks and guys that have benefited from impact has on the field. Like you said, he's a unicorn guy. He's not a guy you could just come across every draft. And Veach has struggled at that position because he wasn't a Veach guy. He was here before him. He was a part of the other crew. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer, man. Like you extend this guy, you keep this guy here. He wants to be here. He's not chasing the bag. He'll probably take a little less than probably what other guys, even that are far less talented than he is, are probably going to get paid. And some guys have gotten paid handsomely at that position already.
We just saw Justin Simmons from the Titans.
Exactly.
4-year, $94 million.
Right. So I don't know if he's going to get that, which he probably could get something similar to that, I would imagine. But even if he doesn't get that, I think he takes whatever is coming his way just to be here. He's a lifer kind of guy. He's a guy that wants to be in the Hall of Fame, not only just the Hall of Fame, but the Chiefs Hall of Fame, the Ring of Honor. He wants to be a guy that's entrenched in the culture here, and is one of the guys that contributed to changing the culture from being a mediocre franchise to being a championship franchise and a championship caliber team year in, year out. And he's been one of those guys that's continually been the backbone of this defense. And he's always healthy. He's always in the field. Even if he's banged up, he's on the field. He's a gutted out kind of guy, and he's a raw guy on the sidelines, and he's a captain of this defense. And you just don't let guys like that walk. So as a fan, not only as a fan, as my personal bias, to obviously it's an obvious yes, I want to keep him here, but as a football fan, those are not guys you let walk. You know what I mean? Those are guys that you want to stick around and keep, and he's shown no signs of slowing down. He's had maybe his best season of his career. Right. You know what I mean? So that's something you ride out. And I think the Chiefs know that something will get done eventually.
Yeah, what he said. But the thing about Chris Jones, I'm sure everybody remembers, what was it, 2 years ago, when the Chiefs decided, we're going to move Chris Jones outside and see how he plays out there. And initially, everybody hated that. Like I remember that game against the Ravens. I think it was the Ravens where he was playing end, and he was just getting roasted on those read options. But long term, that has worked out for the Chiefs because the season-defining sack in the AFC championship, he was playing that. So Chris Jones has proven that he's even a better player than we thought he was 2 years ago. And, Trev said he stayed healthy. I think we all remember, 3-4 years ago, he would get nicked up, and he would come out of games. It seemed like a lot, but he seems to be a player who is actually becoming more the older he gets. And, with the Chiefs' defense, if you look at how their defense is constructed, who are they paying on that defense right now?
Right.
They're paying Justin Reed. They let Frank Clark go. Who are they really paying right now? They're not really paying anybody. So, I mean, realistically, if you're gonna have a defense in the NFL, you got to pay somebody.
Right.
And so you feel like Chris Jones is that guy. And if they let him go, I mean, their pass rush, you feel like it just kind of bottoms out, right?
Right.
And so, to me, Chris Jones has always been like the Reggie White of this defense. When the Packers went and got Reggie White from the Eagles, like he was that one piece they needed to get over the top. If he leaves, you feel like the defense just kind of craters. Because I mean, it's like it would be like a domino effect. So I don't see how you can not pay him and move forward and be the same team.
No, 100%, this is why I was so confident that the Chiefs are going to pay him. And I've had my talks with you and Shaggy about this very thing, Clay and Trevor. I've had our talks about this, about why by the time training camp even starts, we're going to see that had already happened weeks ago, where he gets himself a 3-4 year extension. And when it comes to the monetary side of things, I know that's going to be where everyone's looking and paying attention. But like Clay just said, you're not paying anybody on the defense right now, which gives it full advantage of you just going all crazy if you needed to. But imagine, let's say Chris Jones was a free agent right now, and the Chiefs had a glaring hole, because they would otherwise if they didn't have him. He's the exact same age, and the Chiefs are in the market of getting Chris Jones. What do you think the Chiefs would have to pay in order to go get him? You're talking a 3-4 year deal with at least $95 to $105 million, 70 to 75 million guaranteed attached to that just to get him. So why would it be any different when he's here? Especially like Trevor said earlier about how this guy is so intrinsic. He embodies so much of what the Chiefs are from an on and off the field perspective. A guy that doesn't get in trouble. He's a Clark Hunt guy. Like if Clark Hunt had his favorites, guys that just don't cause drama and shit like that, it's Chris Jones. Outside of telling C-Dot to shut his bitch ass up, which was hilarious as hell on Twitter, outside of that, he hasn't really done anything controversial whatsoever. And C-Dot kind of had that coming, so I really appreciated that from Chris. But the point remains is that this guy has been, like Trevor said, a marquee every week. He's going to be there, going to be out there to produce. He did have his druthers about staying on the field sometimes when he was banged up early on. He did have some struggles at defensive end, but I agree with what Clay said about that. That made him a better player, and it made the Chiefs a better team. And he was also dealing with that hand injury, too, from what I remember about that, too. So his get-up, being able to plant that hand wasn't really there either. He was dealing, I think, fractured hand or something like that. The fact is, though, is that to see him, and I know that the contract motivated him to do what he did this season, but it also motivated him before the 2020 season, getting his extension like he did, and since then, he's only been better. Right. So it's not like you see a lot of guys that go out there here defeated, our late guy Taylor said. But with Chris, it's different because it did motivate him, but it motivated him to become a better player for foreseeable future, not for one more year to get that big payday and then you're done and then you just kind of lackadaisically fall into the abyss of NFL lore. You're not becoming that guy where, oh yeah, he's really good. Now he's getting like 7.5, 8 sacks a year now. No, Chris Jones is only getting better. And I think it's because of the fact that he sees the bigger picture, that they're paying me not just because of what I've done, but because they know I got more in me.
Well, he's got a legacy on the line.
Exactly.
He's already a 2-time champ. This guy is already can easily walk away from the game or go get the bag. Can easily do that.
Yes.
Tyreek Hill
but he's
did that,
come out.
All power to him. He took the bag. But
he's come out and said himself that I want to be paid at least as the second best at my position. That's saying something. That's him saying, look, I don't need to get Aaron Donald money. I don't need to go get Justin Simmons. Right. I need to get Payne's money from the Washington Commanders. I don't need to get that. I would love it, but if it makes sense for the team and I'm helping the team still for the next 3 to 5 years, sign me up for that potential. And now, when I told Trevor I was going to talk about this before the show, and I don't usually do that. I like to keep everything very, very fresh as we go. But the draft's coming up, and it's going to be here before we know it. And we're going to have plenty to discuss over the next coming weeks as to what the Chiefs are going to do. And I'm not here to make predictions as to which positions they're going to go with early and often, whether they even stay at 31. We don't know yet. But I will tell people, because of what I started this entire take off about, adding more Chris Jones to expand and extend his prime years and his career as a whole, as long as he's with the Chiefs, is the reason why I'm guaranteeing you right now, I know one position the Chiefs aren't going to go in the first pick, and it's wide receiver. The biggest reason why, guys, is because as we talk about, you do need to add depth and talent to the wide receiver core. That's without question. And I still think that the trade for DeAndre Hopkins is out there, but we won't have to talk about that because I know people are sick of me talking about it. But the fact remains, the Chiefs don't have to feel like they need to go after a wide receiver in the first pick overall because of the fact that this isn't a draft that's loaded with guys like it was last year. By the way, the Chiefs didn't take 2 first-round picks, didn't take a single wide receiver in the first round last year when it was a loaded wide receiving list that had guys getting taken in the first 15 picks. The Chiefs 1-on-1 bad enough, they should have went and did that last year. They need to extend the primes of Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes by adding depth around them. Sure. But Chris Jones has maybe next to him and George Karlaftis, a Charles Omenihu who's on a 1-year deal, and a bunch of guys. If you're going to pay Chris Jones top tier, top 3 money at his position at 29, soon to be 29 years old in June, you better make sure that you're adding guys around him that are going to be here for the next 3 to 5 years on a cheap deal. Because like Clay said, you're not really paying anybody. You don't necessarily have to. And still go and get that talent because, as my guy RJ said on Twitter one day, you draft defense and pay for offense. That's the best way to roster, in my opinion.
Agree.
Because we know the only way the Chiefs are winning Super Bowls is if Patrick Mahomes is healthy and Andy Reid's and running things. As long as those two things are happening, the Chiefs will always be in Super Bowl contention, which is why you stay cheap on the defensive side. You don't overspend on anybody outside of a unicorn like Chris Jones, who you already have in-house, and then you go out there and you add depth. Like if they were to trade for DeAndre Hopkins or sign him if he gets released, that's what you do on the offensive side. You don't do that on the defensive side much. Look at teams like the Cowboys going out and overspending for like a Stephon Gilmore, who's going to be 33 years old this year, a cornerback. Terrible decision. Brett Veach would never make that move. No. And that's why the Chiefs are continuing for Super Bowls and the Cowboys are LOLing at the end of the second round of the difference between and why the Chiefs continue to move up in their trajectory while other teams stay this way or continue to go down.
Well, and plus you got a very young secondary on the Chiefs roster that is still growing and still. Obviously, they had the best growing experience you could have going and winning a Super Bowl in a lot of these guys' first seasons. But also, with a couple of guys leaving now, with Frank Clark gone, a couple other guys gone, Colin Saunders gone now, missing some depth pieces. In order to help those guys grow and continue to be confident in themselves, you got to help them out by getting more pressure up front, by stacking and acquiring depth at the defensive line, maybe finding a star along the way in the draft, split with our first pick if we go that way. So I think that's a huge move. I think going defensive line with at least 2 or 3 year picks in this upcoming draft makes all the sense to me by stacking depth, because there's not a lot of free agent moves out there that are available at this point. Yeah. So I think going that way and going heavy on the defensive line in this draft, obviously, like you said, we have a ton of time heading into this draft to discuss those things. So
yeah, and the other thing, before you go spending any more high picks on a wide receiver, you really need to see what you have in Tony and Sky Moore. Because you've invested draft capital in those guys already.
Yeah.
So if one of those guys pans out, then you don't really need to spend any high draft picks on a wide receiver. So it's kind of you kind of want to see what you have there before you go spend anything.
Well, and Clay, you would agree with me that, like I said, last offseason, you trade away a superstar wide receiver. Mm-hmm. You go and sign Juju and MVS, 2 good but not great wide receivers on cheap deals. That would have been the time the Chiefs were like, all right, hey, we're trading up 15 spots to go get Garrett Wilson. Yeah. We're going to go and get that guy. That would have made sense. Going and doing it this year, when the wide receiving crop is just not what it was a year ago, that makes even less sense. I don't think, look, the Chiefs have 10 picks right now. I, in no way, shape, or form, believe they're 10 players in this draft. They will trade up or trade back and mess around, trade back up, and Brett Veach does his thing. We know that's happening. Mm-hmm. I would be terrifyingly shocked if they trade up into the first round and take a wide receiver this year, because it just doesn't make sense contextually based upon how they've been building this team for the last 2 years through the draft. You see it that's why it shocked me so much when they traded up for Trent McDuffie, because to that point, Brett Veach wasn't taking corners early on, but he knew the value of that player at that position. The Buffalo Bills were trying to get him. Other teams ahead of the Chiefs in the draft were trying to get them, and they knew they had luxury of having 2 first-round picks.
Well, we had a need
so they could afford to trade up like that for a guy like that maybe at that time wasn't a position of absolute need, but they knew they can invest into that position in the draft early and often, and then get a pass rush from the first. If they had 2 first-round picks this year, I could see the potential of them getting a wide receiver in this draft, but that's not the case. And not only do they not have 2 first-round picks, they have the 31st overall pick. So I just don't see them waiting that long for a guy like that. There are 2 positions that I think the Chiefs will take in the first round or with their first pick, whenever that is. We won't talk about that yet. I think it's common sense what they'll do, but I don't see any way, shape, or form the Chiefs go wide receiver in the first round, even though I know that's the hype machine. But like Clay just said, they have to know what they're getting out of Kadarius Toney. They have to know what they're getting out of Sky Moore, because they've literally essentially used 3 picks on those 2 players. They traded 2 to get Kadarius Toney last year, and they drafted Sky Moore, I think, 4th overall. So that's what's going to happen.
I mean, just to the Kadarius Toney point, I think we are very aware of what he's capable of. It's just, can he stay healthy? I think we all know if Kadarius Toney has a healthy season, it's going to be fireworks, because I think that guy in this offense has already shown he can do immediately.
And since I know that a good number of Chiefs Kingdom out there is sick and tired of me hammering home the DeAndre Hopkins trade or the DeAndre Hopkins acquisition, I get it. What I will do today is I will talk about other areas of need the Chiefs have that they can add a veteran piece here or there to help bolster and solidify this year. Now, I want to thank everyone for reminding me. Thank you, everybody that's on Facebook, for reminding me that in a couple weeks or so, the Chiefs are going to be having a draft. The NFL is going to be having a draft here in Kansas City. And I am expecting the Chiefs to draft needs with their picks as well, as we've been just talking about. But there are some free agents that the Chiefs could get or get back that help this team in a big way. And I did tweet out the areas of need this last week that the Chiefs need to add depth to in free agency or in trades. It starts with wide receiver, running back, edge, and defensive back. And since I sent that tweet out, the Chiefs did bring in safety Deion Bush back on a 1-year deal. So you can pretty much check the box that they're not going to be drafting any defense, especially with this draft not being heavy safeties and corners. It's not really that draft. You don't have Sauce Gardners and some great defensive backs in this draft. So I highly doubt the Chiefs are going to go safety, especially early in the draft. But that does still leave wide receiver, running back, and edge. And the Chiefs had Charles Omenihu, which could be they've been looking for. But even him, like I said earlier, is on a 1-year deal. So we don't know at this point if the Chiefs view him as a long-term answer, even though he is only 25 and is an extremely talented player. I also like to see what they're gonna do with their next Carlos Dunlap. We know the Chiefs love to add that 32 to 35-year-old passer on a really cheap veteran deal as a mercenary, a hired gun, if you will, to come onto this team and help them win another Super Bowl. What if I told you that the Chiefs could get that very player who's just sitting there in free agency waiting to be acquired? Let me know if this sounds like a defensive player you'd want to add to the Chiefs. Trevor, Clay, and anybody that's on the chat, hit us up on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and let us know what you guys think. Especially on a team-friendly deal. So 29, this player has only missed 4 games. He has 33 sacks, 9.5 last season, 34 tackles for loss, 64 quarterback hits, 36 hurries, 29 quarterback knockdowns, and 102 pressures. Oh, and did I mention that this player would come in on a team-friendly deal? Because according to Spot Track, this player's current market is set at only 1 year, $5.3 million per year. And as time goes on, it's hard for me to imagine this player's current market value will remain at the same number, let alone go up. Especially given the fact this player has now just turned 34 years old. But we have seen 33-year-old Melvin Ingram and 33-year-old Carlos Dunlap come in, step up, and help the Chiefs win in the postseason. This veteran player would be a perfect veteran acquisition for the Chiefs based upon availability, productivity, and market value. This player's name is Justin Houston.
Yep.
Now, we can sit here and talk about the bad blood. Oh, it ended terribly. Eric Berry and him, they were boys, and they didn't like the way it was all handled. Do you guys know how often in sports bad blood ends up becoming great business? All the time. Look at Rex Ryan's father, Bob Ryan, and Bill Pills. Mike Ditka hated each other. Successful together, right? Because they were two great talents at what they did, and they built a great winning roster around their coaching abilities, and they won. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. They went here together. Like each other, actually. Won 6 Super Bowls together.
Winning helps.
Yeah. LeBron James played for the biggest piece of shit owner in the NBA. Came back to him, in fact, and won a title for that man. They hated each other. LeBron. But see, here's the thing, though, Clay. I understand that the Chiefs are one of those franchises that once a bridge is seemingly burnt, they don't like to revisit that. See, this time and this era is different than any other time before. So you can't operate in the same measures you did in previous times with different GMs, different people at the helm. You have to look at what is best for our team to win. If that is your ultimate goal, if you're more fixated on, hey, harsh feelings, bad blood between us, but you know what? We benefit off of each other. Let's make this work. If that is actually what you're looking for, then Justin Houston is the perfect guy to bring back to Kansas City because he also fits this scheme almost perfectly. Because Matt Eberflus ran the almost exact same style of Spag runs, and he was flourishing with Indianapolis. I look at this, I think it's a common sense move. He's better than Frank Clark. He's a little bit older, I'll give him that, but he's a far more productive player. He's far more available, and this gives him a chance to do the whole full circle. I love stories like this when you get the full circle, when you have this horrific ending, a bad breakup, and then, hey, you know what? We're perfect. Let's make this work. We're simpatico. We can win together. Let's make this happen. Clay, I'm going to start with you. Would you sign Justin Houston to a 1-year, $5.3 million deal?
Absolutely. You know, my last memory of Justin Houston was the 2018 playoff game against the Colts when the Chiefs defense was trying to close out that game, and Justin Houston closed out that game with at least one sack he had in the fourth quarter, and there was a great shot of Houston getting up off his knees and pounding his chest.
Yep.
As the Chiefs won their first home playoff game in, 25 years?
Yeah.
And, that's the last memory I have of Houston. And, they lost the next week to Tom Brady at home. But it would be, especially to see him win a ring with Chris Jones, who they came up together.
Yeah,
it would be. Not only would that feel great, for us, I feel like guys like Jamal Charles and Eric Berry would see that, and they would, that would
min some fences. Yeah.
So, 100% on board. The only thing I say, I don't think he exactly fits the mold of the kind of defensive end that Spagnuolo likes, but neither does Mike Dana. So yeah, I think it'd be just incredible for the Chiefs to do that.
I mean, especially as a fan of Justin Houston and the Chiefs, the breakup and all that, and the comeback story I think it would be an incredible narrative for heading into this next season, having a guy like that come back who's been nothing but one of the most productive players, honestly. He's just one of those unsung hero guys because he's a very quiet personality, and he's always been that guy. He was drafted. He dropped in the draft. He could have went way higher if he didn't have the the marijuana issue, quote
that
unquote
damn
issue.
devil lettuce.
Yeah. So I mean, outside of that, he probably would have been drafted way higher. Probably would have had way more notoriety amongst the league. But the dude's numbers speak for themselves. He's one of the most consistent sack leaders, and he's one of the few remaining players that has over 100 sacks in his career.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's a guy that's just consistent as they come at that position. And he's a dog. He's a guy that gets after it. He has a motor like nobody else. And the guy was nonstop. I hardly ever saw him gassed when he was a Chief or whenever I've watched him. He's just a guy that just go, go, go. And I think he's the perfect kind of guy to bring back, like I said, because he's not like a – Chris Jones is already a loudmouth dude, that rah guy. We've got guys like Brian Cook on this roster. That's going to be, I think, going to be one of those guys as well. But he's not a guy that's going to talk shit, give bolts of material to the opposition. He's a perfect leader, locker room guy, very stoic. Will bring that kind of that grounded vibe back to the locker room. And I think that's much needed for a lot of these youngsters that can learn from a guy that's like that, has been around the league, has been a part of this this team already. And we can call it bad blood. I know there was issues, but I don't know if that's really it. I mean, he's lived a life since then. He's been on two different other teams. Right. If you're holding on to a grudge like that says more about him than it does about us. And I doubt the Chiefs have any real grudge against him at this point. That'd just be a little silly. So I think that would be a welcoming with open arms kind of situation.
Well, and furthermore, guys, one more point I want to bring home about this reunion that I would love to see is the fact that I think that just beyond the whole production side, which is the most important part because we're in the Super Bowl of Chiefs football for the first time in 50, 60 years.
Right.
It's also the fact that I want to, when we're all old dudes here one day in 30, 40 years, I want to look back and be like, Justin Houston was a part of the winning. Because he wasn't. Well, he didn't get a chance. Like, he didn't get to play more than 1 year with Patrick Mahomes, and they were in the AFC Championship together. Like, I want to see Justin Houston come back to Kansas City, bang the drum, have his name announced on the Ring of Honor with the ring attached to him. Like, and I almost get emotional thinking about it because this was one of my, because I wasn't a kid when he got drafted in 2011, but he was a guy that I just fell in love with immediately because you saw
guys like him, Tom Ali.
Yes, he embodied like that greatness. I think he's fifth all time in Chief sacks.
Right.
Like this story deserves a better ending than him to end up playing for the Texans his final 2 seasons, and then Justin Houston was really good back in the day, but this golden era just kind of overshadows what he did and Jamal Charles did and Eric Berry did. Like you said, Clay, I want those guys to be still legends of Chiefs lore.
Yeah.
Because we grew up seeing a lot of guys, a lot of great players like Will Shield and just not get a ring. And Houston and Holly like they got us through some really dark times.
Yeah.
Like I remember back in the day when I was making Chiefs videos. One of the only things I looked forward to was at the end of the year was making a Tom Bahali highlight.
The Tom Chop.
We literally had nothing else.
Yeah.
And so it'd be great to see a guy like that get a ring.
That would be, man. And there's
he fits the bill, like you
absolutely.
said. He fits the bill as a guy to not a retread guy, but a guy that's aging hasn't really won much since he's left.
And if you think about adding a guy that gets 9.5 sacks last season as a rotational edge rusher to your defense, like think about you already have Charles Menahu, George Karlaftis, you're probably going to draft a guy or two. Like Justin can just come in here and play every couple of downs and just live his life, man.
7 to 9 sacks.
Yes, he's not making great money, but it's like, again, already makes shits he can't own back in his previous contract. I mean, like $85 million. So I don't think that's what he's looking for. He's looking for a chance to win. There's a lot of guys out there like that, and I just think the story would be just insanely poetic. But there's other positions as well, and I think this might was 100% with me on this one on the Justin Houston reunion. I don't know if it might be on this. There's a theory I have out here that we briefly discussed this week with our guy Shaggy. Trevor, I think you may have seen this as well. I briefly posted on it on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. There's a running back situation here in Kansas City, and I don't think that we're paying enough attention to this either. without question, Isaiah Pacheco is the unquestioned running back one going into 2023. He took a grown man's job, and he's keeping that job for the foreseeable future. But what we do know is how vital it is in today's NFL to have a dual running back stable. And the Chiefs had one hell of a dual threat over the past 2 seasons in Jerick McKinnon, who caught more touchdowns last season than Justin Jefferson, who won Offensive Player of the Year, just to put that out there. But as it stands, Jerick McKinnon is an unrestricted free agent, which is why I began to theorize this last week on the running back position and how the Chiefs plan on fulfilling that. It's unknown if Jerick McKinnon will return to KC or not. I would love personally to see him back, and I'm going to say that again so everyone hears it. I would love for Jerick McKinnon to be back in Kansas City for one more year because I still think he's got enough left in the tank to contribute for a 3rd season. But the Chiefs could be looking elsewhere when it comes to adding running back depth, and I personally wouldn't blame them if they did. For one, let's look at the realities here. For one, McKinnon will turn 31 in May. We know that the running back position ages quicker than most, if not all other positions in the football field. Not to mention the fact that McKinnon has had a well-known list of injuries in his history throughout his career. He has stayed healthy overall since joining the Chiefs in 2021, playing in 36 of the Chiefs' 40 games in that span, playoffs included. But can the Chiefs assume that will continue as he gets deeper into his 30s? I can't. There's also the fact that there are several other free agent running backs that are not only younger, but overall better players than McKinnon. And these are just names I'm throwing out, and I can talk about them brief. Names like Leonard Fournette, Zeke Elliott, and Kareem Hunt. I know. All would be upgrades in both skill and age and won't be expensive. That's the most important part because we know that Veach is known for being a bargain shopper. He likes to look at the bargains. He likes to see how cheap can I get you. That's beautiful about the running back positions. You can get guys like that. And I think the goal here is if you get guys that are 3 or 4 years younger that are going to be around the same price, same asking price, if not just a little bit more, but will be worth it in the grand scheme of things, I think that's something you would look at. The Chiefs have much more important positions than running back, but it's still a very thin room right now behind Isaiah Pacheco, given the uncertainty of Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's future with the team and McKinnon, again, being an unrestricted free agent. And if McKinnon decides to move on elsewhere to make better money, or the Chiefs decide to move off of McKinnon, I would like to see Kareem Hunt or Leonard Fournette brought in to complement Isaiah Pacheco, who has clearly won the running back job. But according to Spot Rack, when you look at Fournette and Kareem Hunt, the current asking price for Fournette is sitting at $2.2 million. He just turned 28 years old. Kareem Hunt's market is set at $7 million, but I don't see any way, shape, or form Kareem Hunt is getting $7 million out of a team right now. I just don't see that being a reality because we saw McCole Hardman's market was at $10.1 million, ended up getting a 1-year, $1.6 million deal from the Jets. There's no real easy way to talk about Kareem Hunt when it comes to the Chiefs and fans, because I know a lot of fans don't think the possibility of a reunion is when it reunites, as we just used. But no one can deny that he's the perfect running/receiving option out of the backfield for Patrick Mahomes. He's the best he's ever had. Would bringing him back be controversial? Yes. But it would be a good business move because he would not only elevate this offense and give them a dual threat weapon that has the 3rd most receiving touchdowns amongst all running backs since 2018, but he's also the fact that he gives you a body every miss games due to injury ever. And given the fact that Hunt is only 27 with backup miles on his legs playing behind Nick Chubb over the last 4 seasons, he could still be something close. Sorry. He could still be something close to what he once was in this Chiefs offense. And as I just said about Justin Houston and the Chiefs, I'm saying this about Kareem Hunt. I love a good redemption story. So does Andy Reid, who is famous as the coach of second chances. This would be epitome of a second chance. And let me preface this by saying I don't expect this to happen. I never really have. But all I'm here to do, because I don't have control of the team, none of us do here, all I'm here to do is speculate and give you my opinion, give you my thought on what is out there. And if Jerick McKinnon is back here for another year, you better believe I'm going to be happy as hell about that. Because, again, I think he is the right guy for the job, as he has been for the last 2 years. But if the Chiefs are looking to get younger, they're looking to get better and keep it cheap while adding depth behind Isaiah Pacheco, who's making nothing as a 7th-round pick, I think that Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette are the two guys that you definitely need to look at. Zeke Elliott, sure, but I think he's going to go and try to make some money and be with a team like the Bengals, who are probably out on Joe Mixon. That's probably what's going to end up happening. But I know that there's an uncomfortable conversation to be had, even far more than Justin Houston. But I would love to see another opportunity, because we only saw 11 games with Kareem Hunt and Patrick Mahomes. And in that 11 games, Kareem Hunt had 14 touchdowns. 14 damn touchdowns.
Pretty good. Yeah.
It's insane. And that's with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce on the field. I'm dad.
Yeah.
So when you can have that kind of production from a guy, again, who has not had a ton of wear and tear on his body because of Nick Chubb being that workhorse in Cleveland.
Line is better than the one they had at that.
Far more. And Patrick Mahomes is a far better quarterback than he was even in 2018.
It's a fun thought.
I just think that if you just look at it from a business side, it makes all the sense. If you just put personal feelings aside, which is what you should do in business, knowing the maturity of Kareem Hunt, who's grown up over the last 4 years, being away from Kansas City, having to learn his time, it's basically like sending him off to boarding school for 4 years. Yeah. You can bring him back and not even expect him to be the workhorse. You can just have him behind Isaiah Pacheco to be that patching option, which he's great at. As I said, he's only behind Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, and Aaron Jones for receiving touchdowns over the last 4 seasons. That's insanely awesome. As a backup running back. Yeah. I think it's a great opportunity. I know it's probably not going to happen, guys. And I know they probably may agree with me. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I want to start, Trevor, with you. Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Do you see that being an option, or do you think it's more likely Jerick McKinnon's coming back?
I don't think it's going to happen. I think a lot of this, all of this hinges on what we're going to do with Clyde. There's been nothing, because he's under contract for this. This is his last. They're going to trade him. It's something we're going to move him during the draft as a trade piece. A lot of this, if not all of this, hinges upon that decision, because that opens up yet another vacancy in the running back room, and then we have no one but Pacheco, pretty much. This
is his last year of they can pick up his 5th-year option afterwards. But yeah, you're right.
Sure. But I think if we're going to move, we're going to move now.
Right.
But if we're going to hold on to him, that changes everything. That bringing back McKinnon just makes that much more sense to me. If we move him, bringing Kareem Hunt or someone of that ilk makes sense. Bringing in another guy because we're going to need one.
Right.
I also think it makes the most sense, in my personal opinion. Running backs just continue to plummet in drafts. I mean, knowing what we just did with Isaiah Pacheco, I know you're not. That was a lightning strike. That doesn't always happen. Finding a guy in the 6th, 7th round like that. But if we can get another guy in the 5th round, go take another running back in the 5th round, who honestly, talent-wise, should be drafted in the 2nd or 3rd, because that's how drafts are laying out nowadays. It's a lot of the positions are leapfrogging running backs, and they continue to dwindle because they are the most replaceable position on an offense nowadays. Obviously, you have your outliers that are great.
Do you want Pacheco to be the veteran running back, though, in your backfield? Because I wouldn't. I'd rather have a guy that's been in the league for 6-7 years to kind of back him up. But that should
be the alpha dog in a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I have no doubt he can be the alpha in our backfield anymore.
I think he's got experience. I would like to have a guy back there that just knows the league a little bit.
Running back's a little overrated. You have one job. Fucking run
sense,
forward. Yes. Make guys miss.
Right.
And Pacheco does just as good as almost anybody.
Do you think the Chiefs are getting the production they got out of Jerick McKinnon out of a rookie? Because I don't. And Jerick McKinnon was a journeyman.
I'm willing to take that risk at the running back position, though.
Sure. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would rather, honestly, instead of bringing Kareem Hunt back, I know that sounds like a good story.
Sure.
I would rather go draft someone.
Okay.
And dude, there's going to be so much talent dropping in this draft, running back wise. You know, I mean, I know, and then for me, this all hinges upon what we do with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's
for sure.
For me.
What are your thoughts, Clay? I mean, how do you see this?
Every time you talk about Kareem Hunt, every time, and you will not shut up about it. You've been talking about bringing back Kareem Hunt since 2019.
You made that picture of the Wolverine of me and Kareem.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I think of whenever you bring Kareem Hunt back up. I'm sure
come back.
Most people watching this podcast or listening have seen the movie Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Reaching for the Holy Grail, resting on a crevice, and reaching for it, and we're trying to pull you back up, and you just won't let it go, and eventually you're just going to plunge into a bottomless abyss, trying to bring back Kareem Hunt.
Lance wakes up in the middle of the night.
Listen,
dream of Kareem.
And actually, I love Kareem Hunt, and I would love to see him back here, and I think he would be great, but I don't think Clark Hunt will ever the Chiefs.
I think a bridge was burnt.
I think that that what happened. I mean, we know Kareem lied to Clark Hunt, and I think the lie was so deep of a cut that it will never happen.
No integrity. Yeah.
And I think the Chiefs will re-sign Jerick McKinnon like right before training camp. So I just it's a moot point to me.
Yeah, and I think that honestly, this conversation as a whole is very reactionary because of the fact that obviously with veterans like McKinnon who are not going to be gung-ho about training in the offseason, they're just going to want to show up at training camp and kind of just work their way, get back in shape, or if they're already in shape, just kind of work their way back into the new scheme, adding in the offense. The fact that I do think there are potential upgrades over Jerick McKinnon. That's all I'm stating. And I understand where Trevor's coming from as well when you talk about drafting a guy. For me, from a financial standpoint too,
him.
Because if you go and get a 6th-round running back and he pops, he's just a good complementary piece. Yeah. That takes away the pressure of having to go and sign Jerick McKinnon back, even if it's only like on a 1-year, $2 million deal. The point I'm trying to make though is, I think there is something the fact of having experienced running backs on your team when you still have a young running back like Isaiah Pacheco who's still cutting his teeth. Because even though he played very well in the postseason and during the regular season,
a good example experience was the Super Bowl when McKinnon slid before going into the end zone when he could have had his only chance of scoring a Super Bowl touchdown. And he slid.
He's still a better blocker than Pacheco.
Oh, he's incredible.
Even though he's like half his size.
That's what blocked, man.
Like McKinnon's 5'9", 170 pounds. Like to be able to block the way he does. That's why again, the idea or my ideal scenario is to have him back, even at his advanced age.
I think we get him back and draft someone.
You're expecting McKinnon to get 15 to 20 touches a game. In fact, games he gets 5 or 6.
I actually think if he comes back, his touches are going to go down even more because the Chiefs are going to feed Pacheco.
Well,
absolutely.
And I think we did that kind of this year. We kind of held. I mean, I know Clyde was healthy majority of the year, so he wasn't getting the opportunities. But I think we did reserve him a little bit for that. It was incredible. The last games of the season.
And let me say something about Pacheco because I'm going to knock on this wooden table I'm sitting in front of right now. But Pacheco plays with a lot of reckless abandon.
Yeah, but so did Kareem Hunt.
I feel like eventually he is going to get.
That's my if we go off your scenario, Trevor, of taking a 6th-round rookie running back to back up Pacheco, you don't sign McKinnon or any of these other veteran guys, and then Pacheco's down for an extended period of time because he's just a crazy-ass running back.
Sure.
Are you really going to put the faith in that 6th-round running rookie? Like you said, a lightning in the bottle type scenario. Do you see that being replicated within a back-to-back offseason? Because I don't.
Well, I mean, but young Kareem Hunt with the Chiefs was the same way. He was running through people, running at people, taking big hits, getting right back up. He's durable. Some guys are just more durable than others. I think that was one season. Yeah. I think Pacheco showed he's durable as hell.
Sure.
The guy is taking massive hits and bounces right up. And he's young.
Yeah.
And he's a 7th-round pick, has something to prove, wants to make money, hasn't made shit yet. This is his. I mean, anybody can get hurt. He needs time, but running backs, you have the shortest shelf life of any ball player in the sport.
Yep.
Because it's such a it's a car crash every play. I mean, so I think Pacheco's the truth. I think he should have been the RB1 from the get go of the season. So
and it's fitting that we're sitting here talking about an Andy Reid offense and running backs to this level.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: even though we know that this offense is always going to be predicated through the pass game, it's Andy Reid's offense. That's what he does. But we have to also remember something. Some of the key moments in Andy Reid's era in Kansas City, especially in Super Bowl moments, were from running backs.
Oh, yeah.
And not
Damian Williams, man.
Not just running backs, veteran running backs that she's brought in. They were in-house homegrown guys. Damian Williams, like you said, with that sealing the Super Bowl against the Niners, and then Jerick McKinnon doing that slide, which was much bigger than people realized.
We've also seen it fail with the Shady McCoys and guys like that.
Right, but Shady, the difference between Shady and those other guys is that Shady was brought in as a guy that whenever you bring in, he's going to be brought in. He wasn't a guy that was on a consistent rotation. He was a guy that he started fumbling in the regular season. Right. He was shelved. Yeah. We guys remember that, right? LaShawn McCoy started fumbling in the regular season. He didn't play in the Super Bowl. Right. There's a reason for that. So the Chiefs knew they couldn't trust him. They knew they could trust Damian Williams. They knew they could trust Jerick McKinnon. So those veteran guys, to me, have always been pivotal for this offense, even though, once again, like you said, Isaiah Pacheco is the dog. He's the guy. We know he's going to be the guy for the next at least 2 to 3 seasons probably. Yeah. But you still have that guy behind him like Jerick McKinnon. Like, imagine not having Jerick McKinnon in this offense last year. Yeah. As our guy Shaggy says, he was that guy that justified off of, as crazy as it sounds, he was the guy that justified moving off of Tyreek Hill. Because he got 9 damn receiving touchdowns. That's exactly the number that Tyreek Hill averaged in receiving touchdowns with Patrick Mahomes. 9. Yeah. So he literally just took that out of those now for you.
Games.
Exactly. That's my point, man.
He had 2-3 touchdown games.
When you can get that from a veteran, that makes Pacheco's job that much easier to learn his way into this league. You don't have that right now. Now, more likely it will happen. But what if it doesn't? The scenario I'm building right now is I still think veteran guy. Because even if you were to add another veteran guy, let's say Jerick McKinnon does come back, I still can see the Chiefs drafting a running back in the 6th or 7th round. I still think they could do that. Because they just want to make sure that they're doubling down in some of these areas, spending cheap. Because if you go and draft a 6th or 7th round running back, you're paying the dude $800,000. Like, you're not paying him anything.
Kareem Hunt is just a free agent floating right now.
He's a free agent floating right now. He's unrestricted free agent.
I mean, I definitely wouldn't be against it. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think there was definitely a bridge burnt. There was dishonesty. There was lack of integrity, and that means a lot to ownership.
The Chiefs also signed a wide receiver this week. Holy shit. I think it was, so we're not going to go that route again, I promise. In fact, it was a former 49er and Giant by the name of Richie, don't call me Rick James. He's the 27-year-old who comes in Kansas City off a career year in New York with career highs in games played, which was all 17, career highs in targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. In fact, he doubled pretty much all of those career highs just last season. The best part about the fact that the Chiefs are getting a young, talented wide receiver on the roster for next to no money is the fact that he is a legitimate special teams returner that will take those responsibilities off Kadarius Toney. And look, we all know that Toney is deadly as hell with the ball in his hands, regardless of the context of being a reception, a jet sweep, or a return. But we also know that the Chiefs didn't trade 2 picks to get Toney to play special teams. He's going to be a pivotal piece to the Chiefs' offense. With his injury concern being Toney, the Chiefs have to keep him as fresh and as healthy as possible so he can eventually grow into that what we hope him to be, a wide receiver 1, which is where Richie James comes into play. Last season, James also added 174 punt return yards on 24 returns, and he also comes with 1,628 total return yards in just 4 seasons. Here are the realities of Richie James. He's not going to be a major factor in the offense. He is a wide receiver 4 at best. But when you're playing 17 regular season games and are in the Super Bowl on a damn near annual basis, you're going to need those guys to step up in big games and in big... Who was the Chiefs' leading receiver in the AFC Championship? MVS. He had 116 of his 122 yards in the postseason in that game, which was almost a quarter of MVS's regular season production in 7 regular games. You need role players who are able to step up in those games in those moments. And with James' ability to give the Chiefs production in both the offense as a rotational wide receiver while playing his role in the return game, this to me is only a positive move. But I'm going to say them because I know people don't want to hear me say it anyway. I'm going to end the rumors here. No. Signing Richie James does not mean the Chiefs are out on DeAndre Hopkins. I'm just going to put that out there. Richie, again, is a wide receiver 4. D-Hop is still very much a wide receiver 1. I had people ask me this question, so I wanted to put that out there. This is a depth addition. But depth additions is something the Chiefs were desperately in need of in both receiving and returning. He checks both boxes. Clay, what are your thoughts on this acquisition?
If you just look at his highlights, he gets separation. He's really good at separating from people, and anytime you can add that as a depth wide receiver who can also return punts, I feel like that's a really underrated signing.
Yep.
To me, he feels kind of like what the Chiefs had when they had Albert Wilson.
Oh,
yeah. He was never going to be an upper echelon wide receiver, but he just meshed well with what the Chiefs like to do on offense and with Patrick Mahomes. And you feel like, if Toney got hurt, you feel like he could come in for a game or two and give the Chiefs a really just kind of a competent presence at that spot. So, really think it's a good signing for the Chiefs.
Yeah, sure. I think he is like a Kadarius Toney light player. That's kind of their skill sets are similar. Obviously, Kadarius is a superior athlete, but they're both great athletes. Richie
Right.
James has shown. I remember watching him with his little stint with San Fran too, slowing in and being a rotational guy. He's never really gotten that much opportunity, and some injuries took place in New York this past season. He had an opportunity. He had a few good games. He strung along in a row there. So I think he's finally kind of getting a shot. And I think this is a best case scenario for him as far as a landing spot. You go from Daniel Jones to Patrick Mahomes, a high-flying passing offense going, from a rush-first offense, a guy that threw, couldn't even reach 20 touchdowns, it seemed like. So I like the signing a lot. I think he's a great rotational guy. I think he's a really good special teamer. I think he's a guy we're going to see return punts and kicks at points in the season. Especially with with Mecole Hardman going elsewhere, having another guy that can return punts and kicks at a fairly high level. He's a very elusive guy. Has got some good speed. Is quick as well. His quickness is different than his straight line speed. He's a very elusive guy and can make guys miss. So I like that. He can do a lot of jet sweeps type of stuff as well. He's perfect with this kind of offense. And I do like the Albert Wilson call there. He's a similar guy that can go in there, make big plays out of nowhere. I think he'll be a good rotational guy for this wide receiver room. So, nothing special, nothing sexy. When you hear Richie James, you don't think of anything, it doesn't really move the needle for you at all. But I think this is going to be a guy that will make some wow plays every once in a while this season. So I definitely like him, especially for special teams.
We saw our guy. I'm reading some of our chats right now on our live, and I appreciate everybody that's doing that. Hit us up on YouTube if you guys could. Hit the subscribe button and chime in. I'll read some of these real quick. In text on my right this second, our guy John Harrison said, "Don't trade up to get a wide receiver. There's value in the second or third round. A T. Perry is 6'4", relatively fast, and produced at Wake Forest when he was the marked man. A.T. Perry's numbers at Wake Forest 2 years, 152 catches for almost 400 yards and 26 touchdowns. When defenses knew he was the number one and key to stop him." So the reason I'm bringing that comment up right now is the fact that I don't think that Richie James's acquisition is going to keep the Chiefs from still drafting a wide receiver by any means. Even though he's only 27 years old, and I know that the Chiefs believe that he can be a productive player, but I think the Chiefs are also realistic with what their expectations are with him. Mm-hmm. And the reason why, again, I was hammering the point home about the Chiefs not taking a wide receiver too early is also the fact that league-wide, Trevor, you talked about this on the show 100 times, and I'll talk about it again. If you look at the league right now and all the best receivers, the majority of them are not first-round receivers.
Right.
Look at it like this. These are guys that were not drafted in the first round over the last decade. Devontae Adams, Tyreek, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Tyler Lockett, Deebo Samuel, Chris Godwin, A.J. Brown, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf, George Pickens, Sky Moore, that's our guy, so I'm putting him out there right now, Christian Watson, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Curtis Samuel, Juju, Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Jarvis Landry, Michael Gallup, Mecole Hardman, Michael Pittman Jr., Darnell Mooney. That is a list of guys across the league that are skilled, they're great players, elite players, are just really good at what they do. Yep. And that's the point I'm trying to make. The Chiefs don't have to obligate themselves to do it. So I'm with our guy John 100% in that. I think that Richie James is going to give the Chiefs an opportunity to say, look, we're still going to draft a receiver at some point, but now with this addition, and I still think that D-Hop's in play, knowing what they want out of Sky Moore and Kadarius, the room goes from really thin to really overcrowded really quick if you think about it. Just a couple acquisitions here or there, and all of a sudden the Chiefs are pretty deep. If you think about it, if Kadarius Toney's your wide receiver 2 or 3, you're deep at wide receiver.
Could be wide receiver 1, but yes, I think this is just simply a insurance move for Kadarius Toney because of injury issues and has had them over this, and just in case it's an insurance move, a guy with a similar skill set that can do similar things, similar build, similar, and this is not a Mecole replacement by any means. I believe that he's not near the runner with the ball that Mecole is. But good, you can get the in round,
but he does get the space, like Clay was saying.
Yes, absolutely. He's very elusive. That is one thing I will say for sure. Richie James is an elusive guy, but I think this is definitely an insurance move for Kadarius and a very good special teams move because the dude he's effective in the special teams, and that way it takes a little pressure off Kadarius Toney from having to be a returner at any point, and definitely takes the pressure off of Sky Moore from having to worry about the yips again. We've seen that before.
I feel like when you sign a guy like this, especially if you go get DeAndre Hopkins, now you're kind of freed up in the draft, and you can go get that Mecole replacement. Like the Chiefs brought in a guy like Trey Palmer.
True speedster,
burner. Just like a burner,
Just a guy who was pure speed, who was not necessarily
John Ross,
polished as a receiver. I feel like if the Chiefs could add Trey Palmer like in the 4th or 5th
Yeah.
round,
Hell
I think
yeah.
is where he's projected. Yeah, I think I would fit in perfectly with his offense.
And the one thing about Trey Palmer that McCole struggled with, Palmer's got good hands.
and
That's one thing. He's unpolished for sure.
Yeah.
But that ball is in the air, he gets it. So that's one thing I do like about that kid is he does get the high point as well. So I know that's a cliche in the NFL terms, but getting a guy like that that already a little bit a step ahead of what McCole was as a football player, maybe not an athlete, maybe they're neck and neck when it comes to that, but as a football player, if he already has a little bit of a step ahead, that gives a coaching staff like the Reed regime, if you will, opportunity to kind of just get him quicker than what they McCole. Unfortunately for McCole is that he was playing behind 2 legitimate guys. It doesn't do McCole any favors that he went out and tweeted that as an excuse, but that is a fact. It's harder to play behind guys like that with the scenario that you have right now and could potentially have going into week 1 of this next season. Young guys could flourish in this offense because of the fact that Travis Kelce, although he will still be great, I'm expecting him to have another baller season. He will be 34 in about 6 months. That is something you have to pay attention to. And if you're trying to get Travis Kelce into his later stages at 37, 38 years old, still playing football, the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you're getting him young talent around him to take the distraction off of him where he's not double teamed
And not just
all the
that,
time.
if you want to compete for Super Bowls,
Right.
You got to to play, bring in elite talent or draft hopes to something to it. So this move isn't a sexy move. It's probably not going to be a highlight guy at any point of the season. Really, there's going to be moments where, like I said, oh shit plays, like wow, he just did that. There's going to be probably a couple moments like that this season. But this guy is simply, I feel like an insurance piece. Has to do a couple. He can do what Sky Moore does. Sky Moore is a very Albert Wilson-esque kind of guy at this point too. He's very good in the slot and very good at beating cover 2, things like that. A guy that can get it done in moments when called upon. So I think that's all that this is. I'm not expecting him out and be a wide receiver too. Show out and take anybody's job. But I do like this move as a security move and setting up and just adding a good solid depth piece to the wide receiver room to solidify the wide receiver room with another big move like a D-Hop would be great.
Something else I want to talk about before we get to the final segment of our show, and again, we do appreciate everybody here, especially our guy Klindler for taking time on his free day to hang out with us. He's like I always tell you guys, he's the one that puts all this together at the back end. Today he's with us in the front, and we definitely appreciate his time for sure. But something I also want to bring up before we, like I said, we wrap up the show. We have to acknowledge what's going on in the NFL outside of Chiefs Kingdom. We know that there are 2 quarterbacks right now that are more than likely going to be on the move. One's in the AFC and one's in the NFC, but it looks like the one that's in the NFC could go to the AFC and the one that's in the AFC could be going to the NFC. We don't have any speculation as to what's going to happen to Lamar Jackson, but we do know that Aaron Rodgers will be York Jet, which means that the AFC's quarterback structure is going to get even sturdier because Aaron Rodgers, even though he had a down season last year, when healthy, when he had a broken thumb last year, essentially, or jacked up various problems with all these rookie receivers, I still think that Aaron Rodgers is very much solidified as a top 8, 10 quarterback in this league, even at almost 40 years old. I think he very much is. Going to a loaded roster like the Jets, I think is only going to ignite him to try to prove his doubters, which there are plenty of now, rightfully so. I think that he's kind of put himself in a position to be questioned a little bit as far as how much football still matters to him because of how he's been handling his off seasons over the last few years. But going to the Jets, I think that's only going to swing the tilting of that weight that the AFC has at quarterback right now even more so, even if Lamar Jackson ultimately goes to the NFC side of things, which I think if he does get traded, he will end up on the NFC side because I don't think the Ravens want to put him in the AFC because he's a very dangerous quarterback. I want to ask you guys, when it comes to do you guys think the NFL has a problem right now with the difference in how the conferences are built right now? Because I do. I think it's a real bad problem for the NFC. You look at the way the AFC is right now. We already talked about and addressed it before last, how heavy it is quarterback side on the AFC side of things, which honestly makes Patrick Mahomes' legacy even greater, knowing that he still won that Super Bowl last year when the Chiefs were supposed to be on a downhill trajectory.
Lost
at least
the best receiver in football.
This is supposed to be the year Josh Allen and Ober were going to win a Super Bowl while Patrick Mahomes and the team were. Having said that, though, it's without question, if you did a 1 through 10 in the quarterback rankings right now in the NFL, I would say safely 7 of those 10 quarterbacks are on the AFC side. I would say that Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, because he will be with the Jets, and right now Lamar Jackson. Those are 7 of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL are on the AFC side. Do you think that's almost like an obligation now where we got to find a way to start the balance? Because, I mean, Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott and Derek Carr are good quarterbacks, but they're not elite quarterbacks. How do you guys see this going, man? Do you think it's going to stay this way in the AFC for a while? Like, do you guys think that there's going to eventually be a guy, not a Josh Allen, but like a Justin Herbert? Like, dude, I got to get out of this damn conference. Because that's what Derek Carr did. Derek Carr was 31 years old. He's like, I can't stay here anymore if I want to win. Because I think for the next 5 to 10 years, this is how it's going to look in the AFC. Do you guys think Lamar Jackson, when he ultimately decides, hey, I'm not coming back for sure, it's without question, I've been saying my goodbyes, get to the NFC so I can finally start winning games? What do you think, Trev?
Personally, don't really care that much about it. I think it's kind of fun, and the fact that there can only be one. You know what I mean? There's always that
Highlander, nice.
You know what I mean? So it was that made last year that much better because of the talent pool that is at quarterback in the AFC, and we still were the ones to finish on the pinnacle there. But I just think I think it is what it is. I don't think there's any kind of what can you really expect the NFL to do? You know what I mean? It just kind of is what it is. A lot of the time just have to be stacked, and a lot of opportunities have opened up and then honestly, the AFC has drafted really well. There's a lot of great. They drafted these quarterbacks. A lot of these quarterbacks. The Burrows and the Justin Herberts and the Josh Allens,
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, they all just happen to be drafted into the AFC, and it just is what it is. And Aaron Rodgers is on his way out, and the Jets just happened to be a great landing spot, and here it is. Tua played well last year, and he was that's where he landed. So a lot of things just happened, and it's not just quarterbacks, man. A shit ton of skill players are a lot of great wide receivers on the AFC as well. It's just loaded right now.
Well, you can make the case the two best rosters were on the NFC side last year with the Eagles and Niners.
Sure.
You can make that case. But the 49ers, the reason why they didn't get to the Super Bowl last year is they were hampered at quarterback. They were down to their quarterback 4, ended up having Johnson, who's like 36-year-old dude that played in the XFL, playing quarterback in the NFC Championship. So, I don't want to diss the NFL here, but I almost the reason I'm saying that I know the NFL can't do anything about it, but I'm almost feeling like as if some of these quarterbacks on the AFC side are going to have to start focusing and fixating. How the fuck do I get out of here? Get me into the NFC so I can have a chance. Because I guarantee you, if Lamar Jackson goes to the NFC, let's say he goes to the Commanders, that team is in contention to get to the Super Bowl. That is a loaded roster with by far the best quarterback they've had in decades. So that's what I'm looking at from a business standpoint as a quarterback who's trying to build my legacy here, trying to prove people wrong. How do I get over? That's why I think it's almost
for Lamar,
insanity that Aaron Rodgers is going to the AFC. Yeah.
For Lamar, it makes way too much sense to get the fuck out of the AFC.
Yeah.
That makes way too much sense for him. And plus, they can not only dealing with all the talent that he's going to have to deal with and going up against, I think it makes the most sense for him to go pay. That's why I thought Atlanta was a great move for him. I thought it's not a great roster at this moment, but I think it's a great fan base. A dome, playing multiple dome games.
Yeah,
you don't have to deal with the treacherous weather of Maryland. You know what I mean? So that makes a lot of sense for him. We still don't know where he's going to go. He could definitely end up in the NFC. But as far as the way that the league has swung so far and heavy talent wise, especially quarterback realm on the AFC, I think it just is what it is, man. You just got to play the cards, play the hand you're dealt, and I don't know if quarterbacks think things that way. Do I want to go through this gauntlet? I don't know. I think a lot of these guys want to beat the best of the best. And then Patrick Mahomes obviously has that mentality. He's done it twice.
Right.
He's been at the top twice, and I think he's proven that. And I think other guys are hungry to take that from Pat. I think a lot of the guys, these competitive quarterbacks, don't want to be the guy that leaves the AFC because it was tough because Pat's the guy. I think a lot of those guys want to knock Pat off. I think Joe Burrow, those guys want to beat Pat. Joe, and especially Joe Burrow, a guy that had that opportunity and failed. You know what I mean? So I think that's the big thing. But it is what it is for me, man.
Yeah, these things are cyclical, so it doesn't bother me. Early 90s, Washington and the Giants, all in one division, all winning a Super Bowl or multiple Super Bowls in the first 5 years of the 90s.
Yeah.
So that's just how it goes in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I just feel like if you can't, the league tried to step in and force a trade or something.
Put this team here.
That would be awful.
You guys remember how the NBA did it with Chris Paul when they tried to trade, the Lakers tried to trade for Chris Paul, and David Stern's like, no, you're not getting Chris Paul.
Like that, though.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm saying, I don't think that's going to happen on the NFL side of things.
Right.
I worry that there's going to be so much on the AFC side of things that we're going to miss out on opportunities that guys could have on the other side of things that could win and get, because I would love it if we could get a Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Yeah. Like a guy of that ilk. I'm not saying those guys are leaving their teams anytime soon. I'm saying I want to see more talent on that side so we can get better. Because, the Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes matchup was incredible. Yeah. But what are the chances we're getting multiple of those? Not good.
Well, what do you think the best thing to do is? Just get rid of divisions?
You know how I feel about this.
we are on the same.
I've said this for a long time.
Never in a million years.
I know it's probably not gonna happen,
The
but I think
reason
it's a
why
fun
it needs
thought.
to happen
Yeah.
is because of the fact that we're not living in the 70s and 80s anymore, where travel's tough.
Yeah.
That's archaic. Like, I know it's fun because we
It's
love the
still-
rivalries
I mean,
of Raiders, Chiefs,
jet lag
Broncos,
is
all
still
that.
a bitch.
I get it. But here's the thing. Because of the fact now there's no real true rivalries outside of maybe a couple still, because of the way the Chiefs have been dominating the AFC West, doesn't even feel like a rivalry
All these players
anymore.
are boys
It feels like
nowadays.
in the stands rivalries, you can still have those.
Social media age.
But think about how much better it would be for the NFL. Think about it like this. We have, 7 seeds now in the NFL on both sides. You go record, strictly record, as far as how you seed.
Win percentage, yep.
That way, all the best teams make it. Because how many times we just saw the Buccaneers last year go 8-9, which, by the way, I nailed that damn prediction. I said they'd go 8-9,
annoying.
but they not only made the playoffs, they won their damn division, which means they got a home playoff game. Right. That team did not deserve to be in the playoffs, and it was shown that very first playoff game when they got smoked by the Cowboys, who have zero playoff.
I know it's
zero playoff success.
It's Tom Brady, but was that good for the NFL?
That's what I'm
it's
saying.
not.
It was a terrible game. People want to blame the 7 seed. I blame them
got
for your
slaughtered
seeding.
by the Cowboys.
I'm good with 7 seeds. I'm good with 8 seeds because you have 32 teams.
Right.
I'm good with more teams in the playoffs. The point I have is you need to seed these teams correctly, because we saw in 2008 the Patriots went 11 and missed the damn playoffs because they win their division.
Right.
That's ridiculous. You need to have teams with winning records and that's shown all season we're a better team. That team that won, that happened to be in a shitty ass division, that won 8 games, they're getting a home playoff game. We're missing it entirely. That's bad for the product. So I would love it if the NFL scrapped divisions or reconstructed it in a way where teams with better records make the playoffs. Not, hey, we happen to be in the craziest league, the worst division ever.
We're the best, worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, we're in the AFC South and we won 9 games. We get a home playoff game. Like, that's ridiculous to me. Yeah. I think that worked back in the day, but we're in a different era, in a different football league completely from medical advances, scientific advancements, athletic ability, skill positions, travel. Everything is so much better than it was 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, and I think the rules and the way the league has become, it's more malleable than ever.
Yeah.
They've been constantly, every year, every offseason, they're changing something. They're trying to integrate the and expand the NFL across overseas and things like that. So of course, but I mean the league has been it's becoming very. There's a lot of new change.
Progressive.
Yeah, of course.
Very progressive.
So change is always scary, but I think the idea of having the best teams, the best of the best on the field, regardless of where the division were they second or third in the division, they didn't make it because their division was so good. I don't think that's fair either. I think it is. I mean, like the Bucks from this past season is the best example, and just recently because that team was awful.
Right.
And it was Tom Brady. I get it. Still take it.
2 wild cards had better record
Tom
than
Brady,
division
but if
winner.
Tom Brady was on that team, that would have been even worse. That would have been one of the fewest, lowest watched games in a while. So that's.
I'd say, I mean, the Chargers had a better record than the Jaguars, right? But I mean, Jaguars won that, so I think it works both ways. And
Very similar teams, though, in a lot of ways, as far as their talent.
for me, I just don't want to destroy 50 years of NFL history.
I get it.
That's my opinion on that.
I don't think it would affect the history. But
Plus, you're taking away the opportunity to see Tom Brady fucking destroyed in the first round of the playoffs.
That was fun. I will say it was fun.
I will never
There was
be in favor of anything.
some pleasure to that.
Let me ask you though, real quick, Clay, because to that point, you used the Jags chart game. Do you honestly think that game ends any differently if it was in LA?
Not really.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, let's say LA was to get the higher seed, and Jacksonville ended up having to go to LA. I think the Jags still win the game. So there's no
Probably,
real advantage there. You know what I mean?
I just feel like if you win your division, you've earned all playoff game. Period.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If it was structured to where, hey, we won our division, we won the bare minimum amount of games, we get a home game. Like, if they set it to where you have to win double-digit games, if you win your division and win double-digit games, you get a home game. If you win less than double-digit games and you win your division, you still got to go on the road. Like, that's how I want to see it. I'm not saying just scrap divisions completely. I'm not saying that's the only way.
They took the
but they have to figure out
and bye weeks away.
There has to be a new system because I'm sick of seeing mediocre teams get rewarded simply because they happen to be in a bad division, or teams that are in great divisions, like Trevor said, where the Chargers win 10, 11 games, get fucked because they had a much better season, but they happen to play in the Chiefs division. Like, how shitty that is. Like, they didn't choose that. Yeah. They didn't ask for that. You know what I mean? Like, this is what they had to inherit.
Better than 80% of the teams in the league.
We're looking for competitive balance, correct? Everything we progress in, like you said, Trevor, is for competitive balance. That is not a competitive competitive balance.
And it all comes up to dollar signs as well, too. You're telling me that if we opened it up and all we got was the best teams that had the most wins and the best winning percentage, they all faced off. You didn't have shitty teams with 8 wins making the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a better product.
As fun as it was to see Tom Brady get his shit kicked in, I would have rather him not be in the playoffs.
Right.
Because it was a horrible game. That game sucked.
I mean, you can say that.
But
that game sucked.
Listen. In 1986, I think it was, the 49ers, I'm pretty sure they won their division, and they went to New York, and they got the shit kicked out of them 49-3.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you can have a shitty playoff game with 2 teams that, quote unquote, deserve to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So
and you have your other outliers where you have the Giants of 2007 and 2011 who went 9-7 both seasons in the Super Bowl. So, right, there are those outliers, but how often does that really happen?
I think the fact that it doesn't happen very often is the argument for keeping the status quo. Because when that does, it's awesome, right? And you see history being made. You see
great upsets and things like that.
You're surprised, you're entertained because you didn't see that coming, right?
Sure.
I don't think that would take that away entirely, though. I still think there would be teams that are on the bottom really making the postseason, even with it all up. There would still be teams like, pushing 9-10 wins, barely making it, that would still upset someone. I still think that's still a possibility. Yeah. I don't think that would take that away.
Like if I was trying, let's say I had my own Armour Theater, right? And I was only allowed to have play for an entire month. I'm not picking, Miss Congeniality 2. You know what I'm saying? Even though it probably did good in box office. I'm going to go pick Reservoir Dogs. I'm going to go pick The Sandlot. By the way, happy 30th anniversary, my guys. Love you guys. I'm going to pick classics, movies that are bangers. Stuff that makes
sense.
Hooch.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? K911. I'm going to get movies that I know mean something that are quality films. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe I'm just looking at this from just a business standpoint because I get Clay saying years of history. Yeah. I'm 100% with that because I grew up a Chiefs fan just like you. I'm looking at it from a business model of if the NFL wants to continue to progress, if you want to continue to make your product better than everyone else's, which it already is by a substantial margin, continue that trend by getting the best product in the playoffs. If you're expanding the playoffs, if that's what your goal is, which it clearly is, they're going to add more games in the regular season, and they're adding more teams to the postseason in the next CBA. If that's bound to happen, if that's an inevitability, then make the playoff scenarios better by putting the best teams in place, not having your 8-9 Buccaneers. Now, even if the outlier is where the Bucs go on a nice little run, that would be cool. But you know what I think is more cool is having the best teams out there that gives me the best chance of quality plays. Because the Bills and Chiefs. Great, the most stressful game of my life, I might add, the 2 years ago. That wasn't even the AFC Championship. Like, imagine having that game more often in the wild card round. It could happen because you have the 2 best teams facing each other in a premature scenario. They're not facing in the AFC Championship. They're faced in the fucking divisional round. Yeah. That could be more. There could be more of that earlier in the playoffs. And did that not make that playoff run that much more great? Now, obviously, the Chiefs lost the very next week. But let's say the Chiefs beat the that week. Not like the greatest run the Chiefs ever had, because they beat the Bills in a historic fashion, beat the Bengals, and then go on to the Super Bowl. Like, that's what makes that run so great. To me, it's just as great as the Giants making a Super Bowl run at 9-7. So I think they wash each other out, if I'm being honest here. So didn't mean to go too far off on a tangent there. I think there are upgrades the NFL continues to overlook, but they're focusing on, trying to get to 40 teams. Like, that to me is ridiculous. I know, Clay has his European ties. Clay's from that area of the world, technically. Our guy, Brad Simcox, the Brit Chief, love him. Right. I know there's a lot of people that are out there looking for those opportunities. I think it's insanely ridiculous because already, as we're sitting here now, there's only, 9-10 quarterbacks right now that you could say could legitimately get a team to the Super Bowl. You try to add 6 to 8 more rosters or franchises to this equivalent to what the NFL is right now, you're asking for a much more watered down competition, a much more watered down product. If you're going to do that,
just open up the postseason and add a couple more games to the postseason, and then have a divisionless game.
And then you're going to piss off your actual fan, because I know the goal in mind is to get casual viewers. Yeah. Because you already have us 3 right here. We're watching the NFL no matter what. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what we're all doing here. They want to go get the casual people.
The diehards are not what make the money.
No,
it's getting the
casual. So I understand why they're branching out and trying to get international games. You're trying to build the English viewership and things like that. I'm not against it completely.
Right.
But when you're talking about going and adding a division to the European side of things, that to me is insanity, and I think that's only going to take away from the product you have right now. Do you agree with that, Clay?
Yeah, no, I'm already pissed off. Chiefs are going through.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to send the Chiefs overseas, at least send them to London so I can make a James Bond parody. No, and you know the players, they already hate playing on Thursday.
Yeah.
Making them fly.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean.
Well, let me get your
sucks.
thoughts. Let me get your thoughts on that before we wrap the show up and get to handing out some L's. We saw Patrick Mahomes clearly was in opposition of the announcement that they will have flexible Thursday night games, and we know that they're going to do that for premier matchups, which means the Chiefs are going to probably play 2 Thursday night games this next season. You saw that Patrick Mahomes have the little, like, oh my God emoji. And Clark Hunt was one of the owners. What are your thoughts on you? Do you think there's a dynamic there? Because clearly Patrick doesn't want to do it, but clearly Clark's looking at the bottom dollar or the bottom line, and I understand that as an owner. But what are your thoughts? Whose side do you really take on this?
I mean, for one thing, the games are always worse. They're always worse, and not only that, but the players are at greater risk of injury I feel like when you have less time between. So, and I think in the long run, it's just bad for the league. I mean, you know, but you get why they do it, just because they're going after more money.
Yeah,
but you know, the game is never good. You know, you're putting your players at greater risk, and more often than not, just the broadcast itself is not very good. It's like
I'm probably falling asleep.
a much more inferior product that I feel like they're trying to jam a square peg in a round hole.
Well, and I just feel like Thursday night in itself is just not meant for the NFL game, because I understand that there's people that are so of conflicting with college football. But if anybody's been paying attention to college football for the last decade, it's become so regionalized that people in Kansas City aren't watching, San Diego State versus this team, or what?
I don't even watch college football.
Exactly. The draft, we see certain guys that we pay attention to for the draft or something like that. It is not becoming, hey, we need to watch Alabama versus Auburn. I'm not doing that on a Saturday night. So I know that there are laws in place or like unwritten rules that the NFL and college rankings have. But if you're going to try to get more games outside of Sunday nights or Sundays, why don't working on either Friday night or Saturday night games? Where, like in my scenario, you get 3 Saturday games. Put them out on different time periods. Start at 3, 6, and then late games like West Coast games. And then on Sunday you still have a full slate, have like 12 games, and then you can have one Monday night game or go crazy and have 2 Monday games. That way you get a full weekend of football, NFL football. And again, college football is really not going to get stepped on because you're still going to have your Roll Tides. You're going to still have your people watching their Roll Tide. You're not going to conflict with that because we know that a lot of times it's college fans and then there's NFL fans. They're not usually sympathetic. They're not the same people. A lot of times you just have your purists that watch college football for the love of the game. And then you have your NFL fans that love...
It's got to be a Southern accent.
Well, you know how it is, man. The SEC's taking over the college rank.
Right.
So the point is, I think that's where the NFL needs to look at, trying to add more games outside of Sundays. I get why they're doing it. Yeah. It helps the brand. If you have more viewers, because sometimes people have plans on Sundays, people work on Sundays, whatever the case is. If you want to add more nights or more games to other days, do it in succession to where you have a full slate throughout a weekend. Does that make Saturday, and then we go back to Sunday? It feels choppy. Players hate it because they need more rhythm. Because think about it. You can still do a week in between. Where on Thursdays, you have to have 10 days off. If you do it on Saturday, you play that next Sunday.
The other thing, on Thursday.
Exactly.
I don't want to... I don't want to be forced to work all day and then go to a game and then try to get home and get up for work the next... I mean, it's already bad when you have a game, right?
Right. Yes.
And now you're putting work on the other side of it as well. It's just a bad idea. It's always been a bad idea.
Yeah. Well, that is where our stance is on all those things. If you guys have thoughts, we appreciated the chat as much as anybody, guys. I know we've had some activity on there today, but if you're watching this video in a day or two, or next week, or next century, let us know what you guys think about in the chat. Hit us up on YouTube. Like I said, we've been growing our YouTube presence a lot, but we're nowhere near where we want to be. So we'd love it if you guys subscribe, let your friends know, let your peoples know about where we're at, and hit the subscribe button, like I said, and then comment, chime in, let us know what you guys, even if it has nothing to do with what we've been talking about. If you guys have MMA thoughts, we have a big card this weekend that we're gonna be watching this weekend on the UFC side of things. College sports, you guys are big into college. MLB, the season just kicked off. If you want to talk about Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout doing their greatest, but their team still sucks and they can't win games, do that. You want to talk about the Royals? I don't, but if you want to, hit us up in the chat. Let us know what you guys think. We would very much appreciate it. Guys, we have one more order of business to get to. What is it called? Hold this L. Each and every week, we finish off each and every episode with a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether those L's are friendly or not so friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, who is ever holding those L's in the world of sports deserve those L's in the world of sports. Mr. Clay Windler, the guy that runs Red Tribe and practically runs this show for us and is always gracious enough to be a part of what we do here at the Spoken Podcast. Who's holding the L for you this week?
Well,
Putting you on the spot here.
I mean, I knew this was coming. So I'm ready. So we're all on Twitter. Lance is on Twitter a lot.
Well, too much, you ask me. It's kind of gross.
Absolutely. But I'm not handing Lance an L, even though it would be like Lance. But no. So when you're on Twitter as much as we are, you attract a lot of haters. For the lack of a better, a lot of haters. They just coming at you left and right.
Hi, haters.
It's like especially on top of the world, those haters they just keep coming, and they've been coming hard the last 2-3 months for us. I mean,
So hard.
I mean, it's like you can't even tweet anything about an opposing team without somebody you've never heard of just coming up in your mentions, and you're like, "Who the fuck is this?" And invariably, you get somebody who they won't leave you alone, or they just make some shitty comment that like they'd be angry if their mother saw that. So that's one thing about when a lot of you got to deal with this shit. So you know there was at least one. There was probably two opposing fans. I think one was a Bill, one was a Bengal. I just had to report their post.
You took him to Dad. You took him to Elon.
I was like, Dad,
You went full Karen.
I don't want to deal with this shit.
Elon, take care of him.
Report.
So I reported one Bills fan. I reported one Bengals fan, and then there's some dude who's been just dry humping Lance's leg for weeks, and he was a Chiefs fan. He's a Chiefs fan,
yeah.
And I reported him, and all three of those guys got their accounts suspended.
No shit.
Until they apologized, like they deleted whatever fucking tweet they made, and I haven't heard a peep out of those dudes since.
Dad spanked him into submission.
So to those three jackasses, you could
hold this L. I love it. That was well done, Clay. Yeah, know my guy Clay's got my back all the time. Trevor Twidwell, who's holding the L for you this week?
Well, since we didn't have a show last week, I have to. This was going to be obviously had a W ready for last week. If I go to my Sacramento Kings, man.
Hell yeah.
I've been gloating on my boys all year. The guys have been great. They've been a great team all year. Since the beginning of this, I mean, they had a little slow start, had a couple hiccups here and there, a few losing streaks, but overall, these boys have been the best offense in the league. Well, with the historic offensive rating, this is a ride for me, man. I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect them to be this good, obviously. We just won the Pacific West. Yeah. Over the Clippers, the Lakers, the Suns. I did not see any of this coming. We almost won 50 games this year after coming off of a handful of seasons that we combined them all and probably couldn't even get to 50. You know what I mean? So it's just such as a fan, as a team that's been so bad for so long. But yeah, we've had good rosters here and there. Fox has been on this team for 4 years already. He's been a great player, but took that next step this year. He's been an absolute star, leading the way, being an all-star. Him and Sabonis both. Sabonis has been he received MVP praise this season, legitimate MVP praise. A guy that averaged a triple-double for a long stints during the season as a guy that's just a 15 and 20 every night. The guy is just, you know what I mean? So Coach Mike Brown, man, absolutely changed the culture of this team. A guy who's been around for a long time has obviously been with the LeBrons of the world and has coached on great teams. So bringing his structure and because we've gone through a carousel of head coaches, with the Luke Holtons and all these different guys and the Coach Yeagers. Yeah, it's been a ride finding that right guy. And I think Mike Brown has taken that mantle, and I couldn't be happier to have him here. The Beam team, the culture of this team has changed.
Yeah.
Light the Beam, the tradition we've created this season. Every time we win the game, you light the beam and it shoots up in the sky. The stadium is absolutely, arguably the best stadium in basketball. Yeah. It's an incredible stadium up there in Northern California. So, and that's kind of all they have up there. Yep. The Kings are it up there in Northern California. So, this has been a pleasure to finally see some payoff. After a 17-year drought, the longest drought in the NBA of missing the playoffs consistently.
I think it was the longest drought in all of American sports.
Yeah. So that's nothing to brag about. So I'm very happy to have a winning team and a culture of young guys, and the Malik Monk's coming off the bench and arguably being the sixth man of the year.
Yep.
The guy's been incredible. So I love this roster. I love these guys. We got a lot of young. We got Keegan Murray, who just set the record for rookies all in a single season, 3-pointers made. A lot of cool storylines in this season, man. So winning almost 50 games, going to the playoffs. I don't know who we're going to play yet. I don't know how seeding is going to play out, but we might see the Warriors. We might see the Lakers possibly. That could still happen. So regardless if we win or lose this first series in the playoffs, I'm stoked on life to see us making the playoffs and winning the division nonetheless. So after 17 years, man, I'm giving all the flowers to my guys and Coach Mike Brown for change culture here, and I'm very excited to see because Sabonis and Fox are still very much young studs in this league, and this is nothing to bat an eye at. This is a serious change in the culture of this team, and it's real this time. Yep. I've gone through the years of being excited watching Cousins night out. Not all-star. Yep. But with the team, the coaching just wasn't there. He had his technical issues, a lot of anger. He was so fun to watch, but having that phase come and go, missing him still, love that guy forever. But seeing this new culture and the way this team works as a unit is just fun to watch. Yep. And one of the best, if not the best offense in the NBA this season. So having those bragging rights and the change of culture has been fun. So I'm going to give the W to my guys. I'm excited to see if they can make something of the postseason. Hopefully, that'd be a great story, and I would be high on life if that happened. So, W to them. And I'm going to stick to the NBA. I'm going to stick to the NBA with my L here. The beginning of the season, I picked my finals out of the West. My finals pick out of the West was the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah. I'm going to keep this short. I picked the Dallas Mavericks to make the finals out of the West. And they just missed the playoffs entirely last night. I think last night or the night before last night.
Last night.
Yeah, it was last night. They were officially eliminated.
Kyrie sat out in a must-win game.
Yeah. So and Luka was on a minutes restriction as well.
Third quarter he was out.
So honestly, it felt like they chose to do that. I know Kyrie and Luka have been banged up a little bit on and off this season. And now there's rumors about Luka possibly demanding a trade. Things are crumbling before the Dallas Mavericks fans' eyes, and that's a great fan base. That's a great fan base. Those people deserve more. Honestly, Luka deserves better. Trading for Kyrie was not the move, and I was trying to kind of buy into it a little bit. I never fully bought in, but I was kind of trying to see if that became anything. You were right, Lance. Obviously, Kyrie. Kyrie does nothing but fail everywhere he goes outside of being with LeBron. That's just the only time he ever had success was when he had a true leader on his team steering the ship. And Luka's still a young guy trying to find his way in this league, and I fully believe he will be a champion at some point in this league, and he's 100% a face of this league and a true superstar in this league. So, yeah, I'm going to give the L to actually myself for picking them to make the playoff, or not only make the playoffs, make the finals out of the West. So Trevor Twidwell, do yourself a favor, sir. I don't do this very often because I'm a very prideful man. Do yourself a favor and hold this L.
Yeah. For Trev.
Yeah, it was bad.
I also want to throw out a dub real quick to our guy, Travis Kelce. And I know this sounds weird because if anybody saw the recent news, he threw the first pitch out for the Cleveland Guardians this week or yesterday.
Oh my god!
And he hit all dirt, funny. And it's funny too because his motion. I played baseball growing up. His whole motion looked really good. He just decided to throw the ball when his arm was literally about to scrape the grass. It's hilarious. But I'm actually going to give Kelce a W here because I think he did it on purpose.
Sandbag.
I think Travis Kelce was trying to pay homage to the third greatest tight end of all time and Rob Gronkowski by doing the Gronk spike. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. I'm going to give Travis Kelce, because Travis Kelce is the most loves. He loves Rob Gronkowski. He talks about it all the time about those guys are the reason why he became the player he became. I think that was paying homage. I'm going to stick with that. I think Travis did it because now he's an entertainer. He's not just a football player. He's a podcaster. He's out there like he's a mogul now. Like, he's out there with Meg This Down. He's like making his way out there doing his thing. And I think he's doing it on purpose. That's just my theory. Because like I said, everything looked fluid. It didn't look like 50 Cent where he like 3/4 of the ball or Snoop Dogg or any of those guys. It was a beautiful rotation, a motion. Everything towards the plate, and it's decided to spike it. Gronk, Travis Kelce, there's a W for you guys. Who's going to be holding an L for me this week, though, is something that we've never talked about this sport on this show before, and we're talking about it today. It's women's basketball, college basketball. So this is going to be an L, not for any woman at all, actually. It's for a guy that has built his fortune on being a complete jackass and has sold a soul essentially just to put out baseless college bro material, and it's Dave Portnoy. So I know double standards exist in this world, and some of them are justified, and we won't go into the extents of what those ones are. But one double standard I will not go with is praising somebody for taunting, competitive nature in the midst of a game. You're praising it and then turn around and just completely demonize somebody, and not just demonize them, but call them a classless piece of shit. Especially when that person is a year-old girl who just won the first national championship in her school's history against the predominant, I would say, monster figure of college women's sports this year in Caitlin Clark in Iowa. So, as you know, LSU and Iowa faced in the national championship, and Angel Reese, one of the better players on that, gave some medicine back to Caitlin Clark that Caitlin Clark was utilizing throughout their entire tournament run, where they were doing the John Cena "you can't see me" taunting maneuver.
Very original, yes.
And against Louisville, Caitlin Clark was doing that, and nobody cared. Yeah. Everybody's like, "Oh, she's just got swag, bro. She's a badass, cool, whatever. She's got that shit. She got that way about her." Yeah. And then Angel Reese decides to do it back to Caitlin Clark, and definitely leaned into it, kind of floated around the court and did her thing. Wasn't any problems between the teams. In fact, Caitlin Clark's come out multiple times and stated that she had no problem with it because it's competition. That's how it goes. Dave Portnoy felt differently. Called literally Angel Reese a classless piece of shit, and he dragged for it ever since. But it isn't just because of what he said about her. It's the fact that literally 1 week before that, he praised Patrick Beverly for mocking and taunting LeBron James on the court when he got a layup over LeBron and did the short right to his face. So how do we differentiate here? How is it okay for one person to mock one person, but then one person can't mock the other? And it wasn't even, to me, Angel Reese mocking Caitlin in the midst of, like I said, a competitive situation. It's a move. But to me, it should have been a non-starter. It should have been a non-story. We should have focused on them winning their first championship. Honestly, being an upset, if we're being honest, everyone was penciling in Caitlin Clark to lead them to winning the championship. People like Portnoy get an opportunity to lean into this, whatever persona they're trying to put out there. And I think that this one fell short because now all he's getting, you're not seeing people defend him. Now you're getting people out there like, bro, like you're not making sense in your stance that you have because you're literally going against your own stance a week previous. Right. And you're going to do it again. I guarantee you, when the NBA Finals are here, there's going to be somebody who does something he's going to be praising, especially if it's the Boston Celtics, his team. It's constant. Yeah, over and over. Tom Brady went and mocked the Steelers' safety back in the day when he ran down the field and pointed at him when they were owning the Steelers about 12 years ago. I guarantee you our guy Portnoy was celebrating that moment, celebrating that opportunity. Any type of celebration that any of his teams have gotten, I guarantee he loved it. It's just funny how that isn't reciprocated when it goes against probably what he lost a ton of money in and the bets he probably put for Iowa. But I digress. In the meantime, Mr. Dave Portnoy, you do me a solid and hold this L.
It's a pizza review.
Yeah, your mid-pizza reviews. One bite, everybody knows the rules. It's been a fun show. I've had an absolute blast. And again, I cannot stress it enough that I definitely appreciate two things. The fact that you guys have all been subscribing to this show and been chiming in. The show continues to grow, and we continue to appreciate that. And also, big thanks to the guy that makes all that possible. I don't say this because he's across from me. I say this even when he doesn't listen to the show or hear it. we would not be doing this if it wasn't for Clay Windler. He's the things that I mean it, dude. You do so much for us, man, and we rely on you so much, and you just do it without a moment's hesitation. You're a busy guy. You have so much going on in your life, and you continue to help us out here, man. Us small people.
We wouldn't have a show today, right? Now.
Exactly. We literally would not have a show today. Week's no show for Clay stepping up and stepping in, and I appreciate that, brother. You're one of my best friends. We love you to death, and the Spoken is what it is because of guys like you. And you know what? A W today. When a Clay, we appreciate him being here today. And
fucking W.
Dub for the Clay W.
You can't spell Windler without a W. You know what I'm saying? So, but we definitely, like I said, man, we've had a blast getting back into the routine of things. We're hopefully gonna have our guy Eddie back next week. If not, we'll figure something out. But we appreciate you guys. I know this is the slow, quote-unquote part of the year when we don't have football to break down and talk about. But before we know it, man, we're going to be right back in the thick of things, man. We're going to be talking about training camp. We're going to be giving our NFL predictions and a lot of fun. So bear with us, guys. We're going to be here, consistent in our approach, and we're going to continue to give you guys the content that we feel that you deserve, which is the best. And that's why we have Clay Windler and Trevor and Eddie Ortiz as a part of it, because that's the way it makes it work. So for Trevor Twidwell, for the great Windler, I'm Lance Twidwell. Episode 211 of the Spoken Podcast is done, finished, and finito. And until we're back here in 1 week's time for episode 212, we out of this bitch.
Ciao.